This is copy that contains MAO inhibitants, among other chemicals. And then
it means in Quechua spirit vine.
Spirit vine, yeah. And then the shrub Psychotria viridis or chacruna, which contains DMT. And it's really this amazing chemical relationship between these plants when they're brewed together. If you just eat DMT, it's recognized immediately by your enzymes in your gut and broken down, so you get no experience. If you smoke it, you get a very, very fast, kind of overpowering experience. When you drink it with the ayahuasca, you have a mediated, 3 to 5 hour kind of dreamtime experience where, depending on the circumstances, you receive a lot of imagery, ideas, insights into your past, into your psychology, and can be very, very profound. It can be very healing. Sometimes people don't see those things. Sometimes you just get very nauseous and throw up all over the place. But even then, often people feel there's a sense of a healing benefit from that.
Yeah. Thank God I had the former.
Yeah, well, sometimes you get both. You get the throwing up and the visions,
right,
which can be amazing also.
Truly.
It definitely. I personally am very interested in the idea that plants, or at least certain plants, have a type of intelligence or sentience that is just a different, realm than we're in. And it seems like when you take these psychoactive sacraments, there's like an interspecies communication that takes place,
yes,
and you kind of get to see our world and our state of being from a plant's eye view.
Yes.
And they begin to kind of look at all the bad parts of your soil and begin to remove the impurities. They're like, why are you eating that crap? That's not going to be good for your soil. Why are you having that relationship, that abusive relationship? That's not going to be good for your inner
right,
plant to blossom and flourish.
Right.
So they kind of get to work on beginning to clear you out.
Yeah, exactly. No, that's beautifully put. I think that after having participated in the Santo Daime ceremonies for a number of years, that what the main function of these intelligence in the plants are doing is amplifying our subconscious mind, which is why we get to see memories, we get to see faces and hear voices that we know from our own personal ancient past. And it brings it up, as you well said, in a sense, for clearing, for cleaning, for detoxifying, for reviewing, let's just put it that way. And it's up to us to, clean up the garden or not. But it's really being shown because it's been subconscious. We buried it for God knows how long. And now we have a chance to bring it forth into consciousness. And these beautiful plants, just like we have plants that clear out the colon and detoxify the liver, so we have plants that do that to the soul, and which, of course, is intimately connected to the mind and brain. So that's how I understand it. I think it's incredible. And not even to limit it to that, although that's not very limited. I think, as you said, it does involve interspecies communication. And what then is the relationship to, would you say, the Mayan culture and the Mayan calendar? Is there one? Or do you think that the ancient Maya were possibly using ayahuasca or other possible sacred plants to help them cognize the mathematics of the calendar?
Well, they were definitely using visionary plants. I don't think there's a record of them using ayahuasca, but we don't know because we don't know what the trading routes were like back then, I don't think. But they were definitely using mushrooms and peyote.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, the Maya still use mushrooms. And I was just in Palenque, which is one of the amazing sites in Chiapas. And, not only were there people, sort of under the table selling mushrooms there, like, the traditional Mayan people, I also...
So it's not legal there, even
It's not legal there, but I spoke to them about it, and they were like... They had ways of talking about it, and they talked about shamans who dispensed it. So that I hadn't really understood that before. I hadn't, but there's a total continuity in Mayan culture through today of the use of these visionary plants.
Talk about Western hubris, Daniel, that some kind of modern government could outlaw the use of sacred plants for an ancient culture that happens happily to still exist in the 21st century.
Yeah.
You can't do that. It's madness.
Well, it's interesting to go down to Central America. It feels like there's a kind of quiet revival of the indigenous realities now.
Yes.
Because the governments have kind of relaxed a little bit. I was in Guatemala. I went to Tikal for the winter solstice, and there was a fire ceremony where indigenous elders were coming together from different Mayan tribes. And this has only been allowed for a few years. In fact, in Mexico, the Maya are not allowed to use their archaeological sites yet for ritual, but they are allowed now to do that in Guatemala.
Is that
so? And it was very recent. It was only 2003 that the Civil War ended there, and so on. So I think we're now, and I think that's part of the prophecy too, that the indigenous people are kind of feeling that it's time for them to come forth a little bit, and us in the modern world, the modern West, are now kind of able to communicate with them and understand where they're coming from. So it's not like this rigid dismissal,
Yeah, that's excellent. I've been recently contacted by some Americans who live in Mexico, and they've connected with a Mayan messenger they refer to as Octa, who they say is conducting the opening of a series of portals in Mexico throughout this summer. One is more local and regional for the Maya, and others are for the world at large. Did you hear anything about this kind of thing?
No, but I get a lot of people telling me stuff like this, like different people, going around and opening psychic portals. I mean, I read Drunvalo Melchizedek's recent book, Serpent of Light, or whatever we talked about, that he had to be here, this exact spot.
With these crystals.
I felt it was a little bit like an ego trip, and I feel there's a little bit of that left over from the old New Age culture. It was a little bit like him on his hero's journey, and he's the master, and so on. I'm glad for him that he had those experiences that were so important to him.
Yes. Yes. No, I appreciate the framing of that. I think there's a lot of peculiar activity that gets pawned off in the name of great civilizations' prophecy.
Right. And then, as far as we know, the indigenous Maya of today did not preserve the long count calendar. That's something that was rediscovered by our archaeologists. I mean, we may find differently, that they did, but as far as we know, they did not preserve the long count. So actually, that's been reintroduced by Western scholars, and then the New Age movement, and then has been kind of reappropriated in interesting ways by the indigenous shamans and elders of today. So there's some pretty complicated back and forth there.
Yeah, exactly. And the Maya also, they had a couple of calendars. One, they had a calendar for planting. It was very crop based, so they could live. And the Mayan calendar that we typically refer to is not that.
Yeah.
It is this extraordinary. Will you talk a little bit about it? I mean, I've had Carl Kallman on the show. He's a good friend. He's been on a couple of times, but it's always, I think, really valuable for our audience to know something about what it's saying, because you go into it in the book in a fairly, really prolific way.
Now I have to remember. I haven't thought about it for. But anyway, I mean, the sacred calendar
just reach into your
of the
subconscious.
Maya,
I'm sure it's there.
Is based on this 13 by 20 matrix, the Zulkin. It's a 260 day count that repeats over and over again, and 260 is an interesting number because the average gestation of a human fetus in pregnancy is 260 days. The precession of the equinoxes is almost exactly 26,000 years, 25,800 or something, and our position between the Earth and our solar system and the black hole at the center of the Milky Way galaxy is 26,000 light years. So it was Jose Arguelles who pointed out that there's something numinous about this sequence. There's also
in the Mayan factor.
There's very interesting relationships between this Zulkin and the I Ching, the 64 hexagram code, mathematical relationships.
McKenna came up with.
Yeah, exactly. So it seems as if they
that relationship. I mean,
yes, they beamed into some kind of deep cosmic secret around the nature of time.
Yes.
And the way they seem to perceive time, and our model of time is every day is the same as every other day. It's a linear progression that goes on forever and ever. Their model of time, it's more like a loom of harmonic resonances and synchronicities, where days have a different tone, they have a different kind of feeling tone, different kind of thoughts and actions are appropriate for them, but not just days, but also larger sequences of time, 13-day cycles, 20-day cycles, larger and larger sequences. and so these different patterns recur and repeat. So it's actually kind of like a harmonic or symphonic model of time, where there's a kind of cycles that are almost like musical phrases that repeat on different scales. And so that to me it seems in a way